Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm really awkward at intros, but this is going to be my reading rush, wrap up, and reviews. Enjoy. Overall, I chose 7 books for 7 days and I ended up finishing 5 of them. One was a DNF because I didn't like it. One, I just ran out of time, but I will tell you what I've thought so far. This being the first time I'm ever reviewing books on my channel, I want to kind of go through what I look for when I am rating books. I'm going to give each one a rating out of 5 stars. So to give you an idea of what each star rating means to me, we'll talk about it. A 5-star for me would be a book that is almost perfection or is perfection. A book that I really liked and would have very little, if nothing, to change about it. A 4-star would be one that I really enjoyed, but maybe there was 1 or 2 major issues that I thought the book had and I would like to see changed. 3 stars in general would be a book that I still enjoyed, but it probably has some major flaws. A good example of that would be like Dan Brown, The Da Vinci Code. It's an enjoyable book, it's a popcorn book, but it has no literary value. And there are a ton of things that could have made it better, but I still liked it. 2 stars would be a book that I didn't really enjoy too much, but I'll give it 2 stars just because I can see the value of why other people might enjoy it more than me. And a 1 star would be one I either didn't finish or I hate read essentially and saw major flaws, didn't enjoy it, but for some reason tortured myself and finished it anyways. I wanted to start the challenge out strong, so I picked one of the bigger books to start with, and that is The Secret Garden. This book is about a young girl named Mary who's about 10 years old, and she has grown up in India, but then her parents unexpectedly die of cholera and she gets sent back to England where her uncle lives, and he lives on a big sprawling mansion and basically wants nothing to do with her. He gives her a room, gives her a place to stay, but he asks his housekeepers to watch over her, and she ends up spending the majority of her time by herself. The way that the book plays out is that Mary is a super spoiled brat because when she was in India, her parents had servants or slaves, and basically they felt like they had to do whatever she said, so she was spoiled rotten. And when she goes to England, she notices that people aren't treating her the same because they don't have to, and they won't put up with her attitude. And so she has to come to terms with the kind of person she is and who she wants to become. The Secret Garden comes into play when she finds out that on her uncle's estate there is a garden that he locked up about 10 years prior and no one's allowed to enter it, and she becomes obsessed with that, and the story is about her finding it and how it changes her when she does. I give this book 4 out of 5 stars. I've read it before when I was a kid, but this is my first time reading it as an adult. I think the message is really strong and the characters in this book really stand out. They all have their own personality. The reason why it doesn't get a 5 is because it could have been a lot shorter. A lot of the things that she does throughout the story is very repetitive, but I guess it really hammers in the idea that she's changing as a person. Next up, I chose The Little Prince, which is a book that's been on my TBR for a long time, so I was excited to read it, but I have to say I was a little disappointed. This book is about a pilot who crash lands in a desert, and then while he's there trying to fix his plane, he stumbles upon this little prince who's basically an alien, and he fell from his planet. And the two get to talking to one another, and the pilot learns more about the experiences that the little prince has had out in space visiting different planets. It's like The Secret Garden in that it does have a moral since it's a kid's fable, but I thought it was really shallow. Basically, the moral is that when you're here on Earth, you want to spend your time on people and not worry about collecting material objects. You want to worry about using your time wisely with people and animals that you care about, which is a good message, but I thought this story was just too simple and didn't really grip me, so it got a 3 out of 5 for me. It's alright, but I don't think it's what everybody makes it out to be. It's not fantastic. Next up is the favorite book that I read during this reading rush, and that was Flowers for Algernon. This is one of those books that's like, I call it AP English book. It's like a classic, and sometimes those books, while they may be really valuable books, they're not that entertaining, so I didn't know what I was going to think about this one. It's about scientists who have come up with a way that they've tested on mice to improve low intelligence. So they were looking for a candidate who has a mental deficiency in order to do a brain surgery on him and try to improve his intelligence. So it follows our main character, Charlie, who is the one who had the experiment done on him, and the story is told in terms of his journal entries. So the scientists say they want him to keep a journal of every day how he's feeling and how he thinks that he's changing. So you really see that over time he gets more and more intelligent and is able to realize what's happening to him. This book kind of leaves you not knowing what to feel, because on the one hand you see that when Charlie had a lower IQ, he was kind of a happy-go-lucky guy, and he worked at a bakery and he had lots of friends that worked with him. But from our perspective, we can see that the people he works with are really just bullying him because he doesn't know any better. He doesn't understand how they're making fun of him. And as he grows in intelligence, he realizes the bad ways that everyone around him has been treating him because of how he is. And I guess the message is that someone with a lower intelligence is still a human being, and they have feelings and they have thoughts, and they should not be treated as though they're less than just because they may not understand everything that we do. So it does show you ways that his life improves over time, but it also shows you that emotionally he doesn't feel better about himself when he's more intelligent. He felt like he was happier before. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars because it really pulled me emotionally, and honestly that doesn't happen a lot when I read books. And the story was great, and I had no problem reading this really large book all in one day. Honestly, I'm kind of a slow reader, so for me to get this all in one day is pretty fantastic. This is the first book that I did not finish, and I did not finish it by choice. This is Slaughterhouse V, and I just could not get into the story. I didn't know a lot about it beforehand, which kind of was at my detriment, because had I known, I probably wouldn't have read it. This is about an ex-soldier who was in World War II, and essentially he can time travel into different times of his life. So he can go into the future that he hasn't experienced yet, and he can also travel back to the past when he was a kid, when he was a baby, etc. He doesn't really have control over it, it just happens. I really don't like reading war stories or watching war movies. It just doesn't entertain me. I don't like it. And like I said, if I'd known it was about war, I would not have picked it up in the first place. But I like Kurt Vonnegut, and that's really the only reason I chose it. And I just couldn't get into the writing style. It was dry. It somehow made time travel and aliens seem extremely unentertaining. And so I got about to page 75 and decided I have so many things I want to read. I don't really feel like wasting my time with this one. So I didn't finish it. Oh, and I almost forgot to say 2 out of 5 for this one. Fortunately, the next book that I read I did enjoy, and that was James and the Giant Peach. This is my book that I've already watched the movie but did not read the book. I was looking forward to this one because I do love the Disney movie James and the Giant Peach, the animated one, and I was hoping that I would get the same kind of feelings when I read this. The story is about James, who's a young boy. I think he's about 7 or 8, and in the story his parents have been eaten by a rhinoceros, so he gets sent to live with his awful aunts, Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. His aunts are really self-absorbed. They really don't care about James at all, and they make him do all the chores around the house. So one day, and this is like so random, but he gets upset because the ants are bothering about something or other, and he runs off kind of to the edge of their property. And a creepy old man approaches him with a bag of these glowing bright green worms. And he tells James this whole concoction he needs to make to drink so that good things will happen to him. Now, he's so excited to do this that he takes them, runs back to the house, and he trips and falls. And the bag breaks, and all the worms escape from him, and they kind of go into the ground next to this old peach tree that is on his aunt's property. So what happens is the tree and some other things around it absorb those green worm thingies, and the peach grows enormous. And eventually, part of the story is he goes inside and has adventures with the peach. Honestly, it's a really weird story, but I liked it. I did give it a 3 out of 5 just because even though it's a kid's story, it's just for entertainment purposes. There wasn't any kind of moral or anything, and I think that could have boosted the value of this book up. But if you're looking for a book for a kid that's just fun and weird, this is definitely a good one. I recommend it. Next is my book that I read completely outside, and I picked a short one because it's really hot where I live, and that was The Black God's Drums. I really was excited to read this because of the description, which I'll go ahead and read for you. Creeper, a scrappy young teen, is done living on the streets of New Orleans. Her sights are set on securing passage aboard Captain Anne-Marie's smuggler airship, the Midnight Robber, earning the captain's trust using a secret about a kidnapped Haitian scientist and a mysterious weapon he calls the Black God's Drums. So reading that, I'm thinking I'm going to go on an adventure, I'm going to be in an airship, I'm going to see pirates, it's going to be epic. Unfortunately for me, none of that happened. I love that the story takes place in kind of post-ish Civil War New Orleans, so it has a very unique feel to it, and it's basically like a steampunk retelling of history, which is a really good idea. But I think I was most disappointed by this one because I think it didn't deliver what it said it would. There was basically no action in here, and it's hard to because it is really short, but I think that the characters were awesome. I think the general premise is really cool, but with how short it was, it just didn't work. If it was maybe 3 or 4 times this length, they could have got a lot more action and many more details about this made-up world. But I think the author probably had a lot of ideas of what this world was supposed to be, and the book just came across shallow. We just don't see enough. I wish that there was more action, obviously more pirates and airships, because they literally do not come into play at all. And if that were the case, this would have been a lot more enjoyable. So I don't think I said it, but this is a 2 out of 5 for me. The last book I had picked for the reading rush, and the last one I attempted to read, was The Lost City of Z. I'm only about 70 pages through here because I was just kind of read it out by the end of this challenge. I will be finishing this because so far I really enjoy it. This is a story of Percy Fawcett, who is a really famous English explorer, and the last adventure he went on was exploring the Amazonian rainforest in the attempts to find a city which he called Z, which was kind of a lost civilization that supposedly was really advanced. From what I've read so far, it's going back and forth between Percy Fawcett going to the Amazonian rainforest, other explorers who came after him trying to find him because he was missing in action and he was lost. Nobody ever heard from him again. And then actually the experience of the author while he was digging up details to try and figure out what happened. And I really like the structure, kind of zooming around between all these different points of view. And I will update how I feel about it when I'm done, but I'm not going to give it a rating just because I'm not finished. But it will be coming soon what my final thoughts on this book were. Overall, I had a good time doing the reading rush. I would do it again. I think something I should do is definitely make sure all my books are smaller because I just know I read slowly and it's hard for me to get 300 plus pages in one day because it basically means I can't do much else. So if you like my reviews and you'd like to see more from me, I will be doing a July wrap-up of other things that I read. I won't repeat these since I've already kind of said my thoughts, but other things that I read in July before and after the reading rush will be coming soon, reviews. And go ahead and subscribe if that's something you'd like to see. Bye.